Okay, welcome back to Allobee Radio, everybody. I am so excited to have our guest Jackie here today. And I wanted to share a little bit about who she is, and then we're going to dive into an awesome podcast today. I've heard great things about Jackie, and I'm excited to have our conversation. So Jackie is a certified master marketer, conversion copywriter, and brand voice strategist. She helps new and established online course creators, coaches, and creative service providers productize their knowledge and launch educational courses, coaching programs, and powerful brands with strategic messaging that scales their businesses. I know many of you out there need everything that Jackie does. So let's keep listening to a little bit about her. So she has grown her own business to surpass 6 figures in 1 year. She specializes in launching sales copy and brand voice to help her clients attract perfect fit customers and boost conversions of their sales funnels. Her approach to sales copy and brand messaging is strategic, data-driven, and fueled by deep customer empathy, so clients can sell without sleazy or pushy sales tactics. Oh, I love that. So, Jackie, without further ado, welcome to the Allobee Radio podcast.
Yay, Brooke. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course, we are excited to dive in and learn a little bit more about you. So I know that you're a former educator, which I also started in education. That's what I went to school for. My mom's a teacher, so I always thought that I would go into teaching. But I'd love to know a little bit more about what led you to your business. I think this is always the fun question, especially when other entrepreneurs and business owners are listening, because so many of us came from various different backgrounds to lead us to our business today. So what led you to your business?
Yeah, great question. So I was a music teacher before I started my online business. And in 2017, a music colleague, she is the president of a music nonprofit, was following me on Instagram, and she was like, "Hey, you're pretty good at social media. Do you want to run our social media?" And I knew that I wanted to have experience in the online business world and digital marketing. And I saw that essentially as my way kind of in to get experience with basically social media and marketing in general. And my older sister at that time, around the same time, she is also an entrepreneur, and she saw that and she was like, "Hey, did you know that email marketing is more effective than social media marketing?" And that really motivated me. I didn't know that at the time, but that really motivated me to start studying about copywriting all on my own. And as I started learning more about copywriting, I saw how important it was for business owners to have that as a skill, and knowing that I really wanted to also be a business owner myself someday. I was like, okay, even though I am not being paid for this nonprofit job right now, like I'm learning as much as I can. And I was taking a really beginner's approach to it to just really be as diligent as I could be. And so fast forward a couple years of, having my job, like still being an educator, and, studying as much as I could. My husband graduated from med school in 2020. And I said, this is my year. I'm going to work for myself, and I'm going to work full time from home. And it just so happened that summer, I was using Instagram to do 2 things. I was trying to also explore a career path to be a therapist. But I was also still really set on learning about, or like being an online business owner. So at the same time, I was like also trying to sell my services. And so I was creating content on my Instagram. And it just so happens that a therapist found one of my reels, and she was launching a course for the first time. And she was like, "You look like you could help me. Can you help me write my emails for my course?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've taken a copywriting course before, and I've created lead magnets before. I can absolutely help you." And even though that was the first paid copywriting project, I really surprised myself. She had a return on investment of 7 times over. So I wrote like everything. And that really confirmed to me that I was like, yeah, I can absolutely do this. I don't have to I don't just have to market with social media, I found myself really drawn to, again, sales copy and how that could be essentially the gap between the expert and the people that really need them. So once I saw that, I was like, I'm pausing grad school and I'm pursuing the business full time. So yeah, that's
I love that. I love that. I think that it's so interesting when we, you had that idea of, okay, I think I want to try out this marketing thing, but you weren't sure what direction. But all of these things just kind of came into your life. I think when we're very open for that to come in and looking for all of that to happen, it definitely is really nice when it kind of all comes together. But I love that you chose to go more into this sales conversion copy, helping people to sell things, because that's not always the path that a lot of copywriters take. So, or even content creators in general.
Yeah.
So kind of how did it pick up from there? You've got this client, you did really good for her. You 7x'd, her return. So what did that lead to next? I'm interested to hear a little more.
Yeah. So she was super thrilled with the results. And then she ended up giving me a ton of referrals. And so really based on that first project, that was a big Kickstarter to me being connected with a lot of other people. But then I also realized, like, I didn't just want to niche down into like, oh, I'm the therapist's copyright. I didn't want to be that niche, I really wanted to work with a variety of business owners. And then I started really figuring out, and dipping my toes into like, what do I really love? What do I really have a passion for? Or like, who do I really feel excited about writing for? And, so many people in that niche, for example, like they still often feel like it's really sleazy to sell, or like it's like sales is really icky. But really, when you think, or even like other people will think like, I'm not a writer, so I can't do this, right? But really, like, it has to come from where I found like so much joy is helping them see that you actually everyone can sell what their expertise is, when you see it from a place of, I'm actually, first of all, I'm a really good listener. To be a good seller, you have to be a good listener first to your customers and really access that empathy. And so from there, like I had a lot of referrals coming in, and I was offering a lot of other things besides copywriting, but that's also where I decided like, okay, like I really, really want to focus on the words that people are using, because that's where a lot of the struggle was happening. Primarily, and especially when it came to sales and branding yourself, right? First branding yourself and then like selling, I was like, okay, there's so much gold here that I can work with, and that I can hold space for people too, as they process and like unlearn basically these things. So, we had a strong referral base, and I also definitely decided to remove, services that I was like, that's not my thing anymore. I'm really focusing in on this, because that's what I love the most, and that's what I know my people need the most help with. So
yeah, no, you bring up such a good point, and I think you're so smart to having just started this, about 2 years ago, really already pushing into that niching down, or just claiming those boundaries of like, I'm really good at this, and I'm only going to focus on this. Because a lot of times, and I feel this as a business owner all the time, and I'm sure you'll go through up and downs too, but like, okay, but I could do this and we could bring in some money here, but maybe that's going to take away from, this, what I really love doing. And I think we start to get, feel that imposter syndrome, or feel that we're not going to reach our goals. But oftentimes that takes us on a squirrel path that we don't really need to go on, where it definitely brings that up. And I think especially a lot of our listeners probably are struggling with, either do I just focus on a certain niche or certain, area of service, or what if I'm going to need some extra money? Are there enough clients? But there are plenty of people out there that need your services. And I think that you bring up such a good point of like, it's the words, but it's also the branding yourself. Like, people want to hear, like, if, like, let's say the therapist recommends to another therapist. That therapist is also wanting to know, hey, she knows how to speak in this language of what I need it to be. She can tap into that empathy. She can do all of these things. So, okay, great. You loved her. I'm going to love her too. And they're going to hire you. And so it's referrals are the best. And I always talk about this because that's how it was for me when I freelanced is referrals are the best way for you to grow as a freelancer. And we oftentimes don't look at it as the first reason or first thing. We focus on, let me sell myself on social media. Let me sell myself over here. But really it's that relationship building and doing an excellent job for whoever you're working with. And then repeat that and just keep, following up with that relationship.
Oh my gosh. Sure. Yes. I 100% agree with you. Definitely.
Yeah. I love that your career has kind of evolved into such now, being really successful as a freelancer. But what's one thing that you wish you had known when you began your career, either as a freelancer or just in general as beginning your career, into the world?
Yeah. I think I was also really under the impression that branding myself was just about my visuals. And I think I remember working with not necessarily the best mentors. I wish I could have gone back and I wish I would have said like, this person sounds great, but you should actually look for mentors with these qualities instead. So that's one lesson that I would say I would go back and tell myself. And then also to think about branding, not just as visuals, but also a combination of your verbal brand strategy, what message are you going to say? How does that relate to the overall vision that you have for your customers, not just your own life. I think it's important to have a vision for what you want your life to look like, but as it relates to like your business, what is the vision that you have for your customers after they're done working with your company? And then also like the core values that drive every single decision that you make. I think that's the kind of, especially when it comes to core values of a business, a lot of people kind of just brush that off. And they're like, oh, this is kind of fluffy. Like, I don't really need this. Like, let me just get to like the new, like the immediate things that I can work on, like writing these emails and whatnot. But the further that I get into branding, brand messaging, brand voice, the more that, and studying big brands as well, and what makes them so popular, or what is it that creates these lifelong raving fans, is to be so deeply in tuned with what my values are, and to be okay with how you're going to that the how can evolve over time, as far as like what that ends up looking like. But for me, I think if I had, again, just gone through like the triad essentially of like, what are the values, what is the vision, and what is the verbal message and the voice with which I'm communicating those values, what is that sweet spot? And then like from there, right, from that deep foundation is where your visual brand strategy can follow after that. So those are definitely some things that I would go back and I would tell myself to work on, and it's foundational. It's basic, quote unquote, but we got to master the basics before
you do. And there's a lot of, I think you bring up too, like with the mentors, but also with the brand. I think a lot of times, and I hear this a lot from clients, especially as they'll come and they'll be like, I need a logo. And I'm like, do you have any messaging? Like, what are you doing? Like, do you have anything? Do you have any copy? Like, or even when I used to do a lot of web development, people would come and design. They would be like, yeah, I'm ready for a website. Like, do you have any copy? Do you have any pictures? Do you have any, like the last thing I would ask is, do you have a logo? Do you have colors? Like, that's all like at the end over here. Like, we need to know a lot about you first. And I know that it frustrates people because they want it out there fast, but they don't understand that if they don't establish this really core base and in the basics, they won't be able to take it forward and be successful, because no one will know what they're about. And if they don't know what they're about, how are they going to connect with them? And I think that that's a really hard thing for a lot of business owners, is to just be patient and I think a lot of times it's not even just like the patience, but also kind of going back to some of the mentors out there, or gurus that we hear about, in the online business space, is they're talking from what they're selling at that moment in time. So they aren't necessarily helping your business where you're at today. Like, they're not necessarily helping you where you're at today. And we can often go off on those like little shiny object syndrome moments and shiny brand additions and all of the things. But that's not necessarily going to help us, both as either a freelancer or as a business owner, is that we really have to know, like you said, what are your values? What do you want to actually achieve? And so I think that's a hard thing for a lot of business owners when they're getting started. And even like as they're pivoting or changing, I know we're personally going through some messaging stuff right now. And messaging is so essential to making sure that you attract the right people. And oftentimes we try to go into different messaging to appease certain directions and people, or make more money in certain areas. But usually the farther you get away from that core vision and mission, the worse it becomes. So I definitely, you gave some good advice there. So thank you.
I'm glad.
Yeah. So I want to go a little bit more specific on what you do in reference to what would be your tip for, let's say someone's coming to you, your ideal, client, and they're specifically looking for, let's say they're selling a course. We'll just do that. That's fresh in my mind because we're creating a course right now. What would you suggest to them as they've created this course? They're getting ready to start marketing it. What should they stop and do first? Obviously hire you, but what should they stop and do first as they're preparing to get that course out into the world?
Ooh, good question. So as an educator, it's really important to me, a former educator, like I 100% see the value in starting with instructional design first, and like, what are the objectives that my learners are going to go through? Instructional design, curriculum design is super important, and I don't want to diminish that at all. And I think that there are a lot of instructional design agencies, for example, that once they work on the curriculum, like you will see higher completion rates, which will then end up like creating happy customers who then refer you, right? So I think that's definitely important. But then I think where it gets to be too much is when we get so stuck into like creation mode and like our expertise that then it becomes very difficult to kind of get out of the bottle and basically read the bottle from the outside that is not read by an expert that you are, right? So that's where we have to be mindful of, like, especially if like you're writing your own copy, context switching from creation and then thinking about like, what is someone thinking about who doesn't have like my experience and my expertise. It's very hard to context switch. So it's so important to think about, like, this is why market research is so important. And I will always include, I will always have research as part of my copywriting process to really, again, listen for what your customers are actually, what are they actually saying about their struggles and their desired transformations, and what they've already tried as it relates to failed attempts and other solutions in the market that are not as good as yours. Because those are the things, right, that they need to hear before we get to things like, okay, here's what you're going to learn in module 1, and here's what the price is and whatnot. All of those things are important, but only after a certain sequence of messages that a buyer needs to hear and believe, right, before they get to the product phase. So then in market research, whether you're releasing a survey or whether you're analyzing surveys from past customers, or you're analyzing sales calls, or you're going on one-on-one interviews with people, right? Some of the things that you can ask your customers are, what have you already tried, right? What did you already try to accomplish XYZ result, right? And also just getting really deep with the questions that you're asking. And how I mentioned earlier, like selling is not necessarily about selling. It's about asking the right questions first, and asking the questions that will help them basically say like, oh, I never even thought about that. Like, and that's how you position yourself as an expert. And when you also like ask the right questions, you will get such good copy. You get such good copy when you ask the right questions on like a one-on-one call. I'm going through I'm writing a sales page for a client right now, and I'm like, all of these answers that your customers are saying are just golden. Like, this is nowhere on your website. This needs to go on your website right now. Yeah. Like, let's test this on your Facebook ads. Because it's like especially if you have such a good product too, right? Like if you have a good product and you have a very clear outcome that your students are learning from, or your coaching clients, what have you, when you've created a good product that delivers well on a promise, your customers are going to have excellent things to say about where they were before, right? And where they are now, and what's so different about the way you do things. That's the number one thing that I would encourage any business owner, whether you are a coach, a consultant, a service provider, a course creator, knowing how you are different and using the words that your customers say to describe you as how you're different in the market. That is going to be such a game changer for, again, any business model.
Yeah. Oh, that's such good advice. I hope everybody listened to that and go back go back a few minutes and listen to it again. I think that we oftentimes do not listen to our customers or to our ideal client. I know this summer we usually do a pretty good job of it, but we, started as a managed marketplace, two sides. It's very complicated when you have two different types of ideal users and customers, and it makes messaging so fun. So I spent the summer listening to our freelancers, and I literally did a focus group with them. I talked to them on Voxer every day, took all of their stuff that they gave us, and we built further on our product directly from what they asked for. And now we're turning that into copy, but it was definitely so important for us to just pause and listen. And I learned a lot of things that I didn't necessarily know that they were experiencing or that they were wanting, and things they wanted to pay for too. So I think it's stuff that you don't often ask the people that you're selling that they want to give you more money. But oftentimes we just don't think to ask. And so we shouldn't have to just pause when we're wanting copywriting done, but it's definitely an essential thing in my opinion. And a lot of clients too are like, oh man, there's a lot that goes into this copywriting thing, but it can be so magical in the end and so valuable. And I think a lot of times people don't think how much goes into it, especially conversion copywriting and sales copy. I think a lot of people don't get how much there is behind it. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. I'd love to know I'll do this in two parts. So a first part, I know you were an educator, you're a music teacher. We have a lot of teachers that have pivoted or are considering pivoting to more freelance work and copywriting, all the things. What do you feel like were the number one skills or the number one skill that you took from teaching that has helped you in being an entrepreneur or being a freelancer?
I'm sorry, Brooke. Can you ask that question again?
No, you were you were totally fine. If you just to give the audience, we have had AirPod issues, and really whoever is listening from Apple, really should fix the AirPod issues in all of our lives. It's like the number one issue for all entrepreneurs. So we need that fixed. But yes, I will ask that question again. So we've had a lot of people that have pivoted or wanting to pivot from teaching into freelancing. Obviously, we know we could go on a whole episode about teaching and underpay and all of that. So we'll do that on another episode. But for this episode, I'd love to know, what is the number one skill that you gained while being an educator that helped you as an entrepreneur?
Ooh, so good. I love this question. Such a good question. I have two answers to this. So as a music teacher, I had like 8 to 10 performances that I was running a year. And so that was like a performance of every single grade level at the elementary, plus like the choir performances. And so it was always like, once you were done with one performance, we started another one. So that really helped me with project management and planning ahead as it relates to like your marketing campaigns, and allowing your audience to, I mean, that goes along with the second part of this answer, which is I was writing copy and I didn't even know it. So if you are a teacher, for example, and you are interested in learning more about copywriting or getting better at it, I'm pretty sure if you ask yourself, what are the ways that I've had to persuade people by email? You're already using copywriting principles and you don't know it. And so that was a big eye opener for me too, because it was like I literally had to get like hundreds of people to show up to every single performance, and like children to I had to persuade them, air quotes, to be excited about showing up. And so that's a 2-in-1 answer, where it's like, okay, I have to learn, I had to figure out, okay, how do I talk to multiple people at once and get them all to do the thing that I want them. They all had different roles, right? So that was definitely a project management thing. And then also using the words to basically persuade them to do the things that I wanted them to do. So it was really both, it was both realizing that I was already using copywriting and not knowing it, and then seeing how project management has served me in such good ways that just made my now job a lot easier. So those two for sure.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that that's something, especially the project management, I see that happening from people that are coming from education, healthcare workers. I mean, you learn how to project manage in so many different careers. It is. And I think a lot of times we forget the soft skills that we learn in all of our, in our career prior to coming into freelancing, that are so essential, and honestly what make you a good entrepreneur. Because if you were good at those soft skills and not having, as an educator, you really are kind of on your own anyway. Yes, you work in a school setting. Yes, you have a principal, but you're in charge of your making sure the curriculum gets out there. You're in charge of making sure that all of these events happen, and you're taking care of all of these children. And there's so many things in educator,
making sure they don't throw up.
Exactly. Doing all of the things, wearing all of the hats, all from that. That's why I always am a huge proponent of anybody that was an educator should be can be an entrepreneur, hands
Absolutely.
down, because you've already done all of it. You just didn't realize it.
100%.
Yeah, my brother is a band director at a high school, and so I totally know the whole music scene and have heard from it. I've still tried to talk him into being an entrepreneur, but he just loves music too much, so he will probably always be there. But it's definitely, you point out such good points that really you've already done this. You've persuaded. You have you've learned how to manage this already. And it helps to set you up for success as an entrepreneur, for sure.
Yes.
Well, I know that you've had a good amount of success so far, but what is the biggest challenge that you faced as an entrepreneur up to this point, and how did you overcome it, or what did you learn from it?
Ooh, also such a good question. So a few months into a client project, no, not a client project. It was the first year. So a few months in, I had worked with a VA. I had onboarded a VA, and I made the big mistake of not training my VA to understand how we communicate with clients. So I did not have what I now offer clients, which is the service of creating a brand messaging guide and brand voice guide. I did not have that for myself. And so what ended up happening was she had responded to a client email. She was client facing, and she had responded to a client email in a way that was very off brand, and it ended up triggering the client. And it was like one of those situations where it was like, you can't ever like come back from that. And it was all my, it was not the VA's fault at all, but it was more so like if I had done a better job, like preventing it and creating better SOPs, for example, to, as it relates to like our client communication and our brand messaging, our brand voice, then that I'm more than sure that would have happened. And anyone who has been like the past summer, for example, I don't know if you saw the thing with like Ulta Beauty and Kate Spade. Do you remember seeing that?
Mm-hmm.
Like that sort of like terrible, like that sort of thing happens. It's so detrimental, even like to big brands. And that's why like it's become so, I've become so passionate about brand messaging and brand voice, and also like training, not just, your marketing person, but even like your internal ops team, and your client delivery team, right? Whoever's client facing, it's so important that everyone is on board and they're trained well as far as what is the SOP for our words, And so that really was probably the impetus for me to be like, you know what, we're doing this the right way. We're going to have a really great, clear training, and me putting on my teacher hat on, you know what I mean? I was just like, I have to create better materials for whoever, works for me with me, because I would never want a client to end up feeling this way, even if it was an accident, you know what I mean? Like it's the sort of thing that you can prevent, and words mean so much. And again, with like the Ulta Beauty as that example is like that's a totally extreme example. But on a smaller scale, small business owners, that can happen to us too. And you would never want that. You would never want that for a client, right? So that definitely was a huge, humbling moment for me. And also just helped me like lean on, like, how can I show up as a leader in this way instead of being reactive? And like, how can I then create something productive out of this? So that was a huge, huge lesson for me. And granted, I could say I wish I could take it back, but honestly now, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be as passionate as I am now in terms of like, not only creating, SOPs for your business and how your business runs, but creating a really good, strong strategy for your messaging, for your voice, and how to train your team members in it too. So definitely a humbling moment for me.
Well, you're not alone in that. So many business owners, like, it is the hardest thing is to onboard a freelancer, because you are, especially when you're small and it's your first outsource, you are not sure. Like, you're used to people being onboarded at a school and understanding what the school is about, or you're used to it being, happening in corporate America or wherever it is.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's not your responsibility to onboard that person
to create
and make sure they understand. Yeah. It's not usually how the process works, but it is when you're a business owner. And that's one of the things we actually are putting together that'll be live soon for business owners, is basically how to onboard successfully a freelancer. One of the biggest things was, creating those SOPs, and also recording loom videos or short videos of you talking about that process, so they truly understand it. It's not just it's the words both written and audible for them to truly understand what your mission and vision is, what you want to get across to it. And we find that when our business owners take the time to do that, it's so much more successful for how they onboard somebody, and can keep people on longer term because they feel like they understand exactly what the flow is of that business. But also not every freelancer is going to stay forever. So you already have that set up for the next person that might need to come in. Start growing, and you need to bring in more people. So we
Yeah.
found that that can be like a game changer, and also just the communication in that first week with somebody is just making sure they truly understand what you're about, what you want them to achieve, creating templates so then they can take it further. And it is a lot of upfront work, and all of this that we've talked about, like there's a lot of work that goes into all of this, but it can be a game changer for you if you actually, put the effort in. But that's a hard one. I learned also the hard way on that. So I know, and it's, we get mad and frustrated in the moment that, this did not work out. This was not how I wanted it to go. But was it my fault or was it really their fault? Like likely it's usually you as the business owner that you didn't, take that effort, which you saw that. And I'm glad that, now you're able to kind of turn that on its head and be prepared for other outsourcing in the future.
Oh my gosh. Now I'm like, every time I talk to my assistant, I'm like, oh my God, please stay with me forever because you are perfect. And we work so well together. So yeah, I mean, truly it had to come from that, like that foundational understanding of like, okay, what is the mission of the business? What are our values? What is our unique value proposition? And then how does that translate to what is the transformation that we're leading our customers through? And then also like our team, are we onboarding team members that are deeply aligned with that, with all of those things? So
yes, I hear you. It's so important. That's you bring up that point of just having those team members that are deeply aligned with what we're doing. And I think that is one of the biggest things that people forget. Like they ask culture questions at an interview at a corporate company. Like they make sure that you're a good fit. They ask it at startups. They ask these questions, but we oftentimes don't do that. That's one thing we added into our process at Allobee about a year ago is our culture questionnaire. So any of our freelancers that come on, we make sure they fit with our culture and our values. So we know that they're going to do good work for our clients. And so, yes, maybe they have the best portfolio, great references, all that. But if they don't pass that culture question, like the culture interview, sorry, like it's not going to be a good fit. Because we saw that if it wasn't a good match for us, it was always because of something with culture, like every time it was. And so making sure that you include that in your interview process or in, your onboarding is really important. So that is definitely a good lesson to take away for us. Well, I have one more question for you today. I think one of the biggest things that I get asked as an entrepreneur is just, what resources out there were super valuable to me as I started a business? What's the best resource that you've come across that's helped you?
Oh, does it have to be a business resource?
It doesn't have to be. No, it's just what has helped you as a business owner.
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't think I'm going to say a business answer because I deeply believe that before someone feels ready, like really ready to be an entrepreneur, I know I personally had to go through a big healing journey internally. Because, once you have a level of confidence in yourself as a business owner, right? From there is where you can feel confident about leading other people, feel confident about selling your services unapologetically, right? So I would say, for me, I worked with a lot of people to help me on. I mean, I'm still on a healing journey, to be honest. I think many of us could say that we are, but I think I had to get to a place where I had to be really, really confident in myself, more confident than I was a couple of years ago. So if you can surround yourself with a support system of people who will lift you up and who will help you see your gifts. I remember working with coaches and therapists on my own stuff. And that was for a really long time before I had ever started a business, a long time before I started a business. And I would say if it wasn't for me diligently pursuing those inner workings of myself as a leader, right? Leading myself first, and deeply taking all of those things seriously, then like that honestly has to be like my number one recommendation to anyone. If you're seeking resources to grow your business, you have to grow yourself first. You have to be really confident in yourself first. And wherever that may be, that can look like, taking a class, with a professional who is a mental health professional or a certified life coach or something like that. Whatever it is for you that you feel really drawn to, that will help you with your own leadership. Hands down, recommend pursuing those avenues, because it has to be an internal job before it is an external job of growing your team, growing your clientele, serving them all well. So hopefully that wasn't
no, that is such good advice. And I was just putting together this video series that we're doing for Allobee for our clients that are on board, as they're onboarding. And one of the biggest blockers that we found through all of our research and data that's coming to Allobee is so often a client will get to the point where they've said yes to outsourcing, they've started to onboard the freelancer, and then the biggest blocker is that one, they're afraid to let people into their house, their business house, or because of imposter syndrome, and they're just not ready to go to that next level. And it has nothing to do with the freelancer or Allobee or anything. It literally has to do with them. And so it was that part is get past your shit, basically. It's how do you get past, I don't know, I've got to record this video, so it should be entertaining, but it is. And I experience that as a business owner, whenever you're about to up level in some capacity, you shut down in some way and you start to feel weird about everything. And so that's one of the biggest things that we see is it can happen very often for that first outsource or even the fifth outsource that they're doing. Whenever you're about to enter into something, and that's the same when you're entering into starting a business or taking that leap from another career, is that you need to be prepared because there's a lot coming down the down the pipeline. So I know as the business owner too, whenever we're about to up level or pivot or any big things coming, I always start to contract in some capacity. And so, but I mean, it's just, I think it's
a natural thing. It's
natural. It is. And so then I'm okay, I need to journal more. I need more therapy, all of these things, but I know that about myself. And that's, I think it's just the biggest thing is, that self-reflection and self-awareness that you gain from being able to have that, which is hard. It's really hard to do. Yeah. But by you doing that, and I mean, I think that's such a great thing that you brought up, that you did that prior to really going for it, is because
literally years. Yeah.
But that helped you be successful in a short period of time. I 100% believe that, because you were ready to do that. You had less imposter syndrome. You had less things that were holding you back because you were ready to take that leap. And oftentimes we take the leap either out of necessity, which it's fine if that has to happen, but knowing that you need to take care of yourself is a huge thing. And I know here at Allobee, we're really big proponents of body before business, not just go work out or do yoga, but literally your whole body, your mental health, everything. You have to do that, because if not, you won't succeed. It's just, it is what it is. Or you won't like the success that you're having. Something will be off alignment, which goes back to the branding. But yeah, well, I have so enjoyed this conversation today, and I'm sure we could talk forever about all kinds of different things. Which I'm sure we'll continue the conversation and probably have you back in the future. But is there anything coming in the pipeline from you, or where's the best place for our listeners to find and connect with you if they resonated with this today?
Yeah. So I love hanging out on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is Jackie Sunga Co. And I love writing emails to my email list. Every single week, I write emails that are not repurposed from social media. So I like to have stories. I like to tell stories in my emails that are unique to, and it's not found anywhere else but on my email list. So that you can find my weekly notes at jackiesunga.co/email. And if you want to work on your brand voice, I have a free guide as well. And that can be found at jackiesunga.co/brand-voice. So if you are in a journey where you are really, really working on strengthening your brand voice, that is a gift for your listeners there as well to take advantage of.
Wonderful. I love it. And we will link all of this in the show notes. So if you're listening and you don't have time to write this down right now, just go to allobee.com and look for Jackie's episode, and we will have all of the information linked. But thank you so much, Jackie, for your time today. And I hope that all of the listeners will go and check you out. Until next time, I hope that everybody has a great week and continues to thrive in their business and life. Goodbye, everybody.